The phone rang once, just once. And when I picked it up, a stranger's voice ended my entire life in 7 trembling words. Randy, I found something in the photos. No context, no explanation. Just raw panic leaking through the line, the kind of panic you only hear when someone's staring at a truth so ugly it can ruin a family in a single breath. And in that instant, before she even said my name again, I swear to you, my heart knew this wasn't about bad lighting or missed shots or some technical mistake. This was about my daughter's wedding. This was about betrayal. This was about me. And if you're watching this, you're about to hear the moment a quiet father found out the people he loved most had been playing him for a fool. Do me a favor, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you were listening from. I want to know how far this story reaches, because the truth inside those photographs reached far enough to break me before it finally set me free. I turned 60 last winter, and I swear to you, I thought I'd finally earned myself a little peace. Not a fancy life, nothing big, just the kind of quiet mornings a man gets after 4 decades of fixing other people's broken appliances in a little shop on the south end of Colorado Springs. My name is Randy Coleman, owner of Coleman Home Repair, a shop I opened at 23, with 8 tools, 1 beat-up Chevy, and a whole lot of stubbornness. Most mornings looked the same: coffee on the porch, a view of Pikes Peak, turning gold in the sunrise, and the comforting creak of the house I built with my own damn hands back in '92. I used to love that sound. Wood that holds, foundations that last. Funny how the things you build end up outlasting the people inside them. That morning started easy, too easy maybe. Coffee was still hot, radio humming, low, paperwork spread on the kitchen table. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. God, if I hadn't, everything would have stayed exactly the same. Broken. But I didn't know that then. I picked up. Hello? The woman on the other end sounded like her throat was closing around every word. Randy, this is Leah Branson. I photographed Alicia's wedding. My grip tightened around the phone. Leah, is something wrong? A shaky breath. I need you to come to my studio. Today. And please come alone. Don't tell your daughter. Every nerve in my body went still. Leah, what are you talking about? I can't say it over the phone. But it's serious. Very serious. And then silence. The kind of silence that fills the whole house like smoke. Before I could ask anything else, I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy ones. Dylan. He walked into the kitchen like he owned the place, scratching his beard with one hand and picking up my mug with the other, sipping my coffee like it was nothing. Morning, big man, he said. Mara's looking for you. I didn't answer. Still staring at the phone, still hearing that trembling voice in my ear. Then Mara marched in, 33 years old, robe half-tied, eyeliner from the night before still smudged under her eyes. Dad, can we talk? She said it the way a customer complains that their order isn't right. I hung up the phone and tried to steady my breathing. What is it? My car, she said, throwing her hands up like the problem offended her personally. It's embarrassing, Dad. The engine light's been on for months. Dylan says we should just get a new one. Dylan nodded, patting his beer belly like a philosopher sharing deep wisdom. Toyota dealerships got deals right now. You'd be helping us out big time, Randy. Us. He said us. This man, 41, unemployed, living in my guest room for 2 years, said us. I looked at Mara. Sweetheart, we talked about this. The answer was no. She rolled her eyes. Dad, everyone my age drives something decent. I can't keep showing up to work in that rust bucket. You could fix it, I said quietly. No, Dad. You could fix it, she shot back. That stung more than it should have. Dylan clapped my shoulder like we were old buddies. Come on, man, it's not a big deal. What's a couple thousand, right? I stepped away from him. I'm not buying a new car. End of discussion. Mara huffed, spun around, stomped toward the stairs. Dylan followed her, muttering. And for a second, just 1 second, I wished the house was empty again. The silence that followed felt like a punishment. My hands were still shaking from the phone call. It took me a moment to realize what time it was. 9:47 a.m. 22 days ago, at this very hour, I was in Denver, standing in a garden full of guests, smiling like a fool, while my eldest daughter Alicia walked down the aisle with a bouquet of white peonies and a future I thought was golden. $58,000. That's what that wedding cost me. A lifetime of savings. But I didn't care. Not that day. Watching her smile, hearing the band play, seeing her new husband Owen cry those perfectly timed tears, I thought it was worth every penny. I thought, God help me. I thought I had done something good. But as I sat back down at the kitchen table, the memory felt different. Like remembering a dream right after waking up. Something off. Something blurry you can't quite name. I closed my eyes, rubbing the bridge of my nose. What did Leah see? What could possibly be so terrible? She couldn't say it out loud. A photo. A mistake. An accident. Or something else entirely. The clock ticked louder. The house suddenly felt too small, like the walls had leaned in. A little. I stood up, walked to the sink, ran cold water over my hands. But nothing, not the water, not the quiet, not the morning light, could loosen the knot forming in my gut. And then it hit me, sharp, cold, unmistakable. A feeling like someone slid an icicle straight down my spine. A warning. A truth my body felt before my mind could understand it. Whatever was waiting in that studio was going to change everything. Leah's studio sat inside an old brick building on the east side of Colorado Springs, the kind of place artists rented because the windows were huge and the floors creaked like they remembered every secret ever whispered across them. I parked right outside, engine still running, for a moment longer than it needed to, like my body was begging for one last breath of normal before I stepped into whatever waited inside. The moment I opened the door, a wave of cool, dusty air wrapped around me. It smelled like printer ink, old wood, and the faint sweetness of photo paper warming under soft light. The room was dim, intentional, artistic. Just a single lamp glowing near the editing desk, its light cutting a warm circle through the shadows. A whole wall of framed shots leaned against each other. Bridal portraits, family sessions, corporate headshots, all frozen moments of people who, unlike me, probably had no idea their lives could split in half in the blink of a shutter. Leah stepped out from behind a light panel when she saw me. She looked younger than I remembered, mid-30s maybe, but her eyes were older this time. Tired, burdened. "Randy," she whispered, voice barely steady. "Thank you for coming." I nodded. Words felt too heavy to lift. She motioned me toward the editing room in the back. A single computer screen glowed in the dim space, illuminating dust drifting in the air like falling ash. "I'm just going to show you," she said, sitting down slowly, almost reluctantly, as if bringing up the files would summon something neither of us could put back. She clicked a folder labeled Pre-Wedding Raw. The first few images were harmless: chairs being arranged, flowers being wheeled across the courtyard, a catering guy wiping his forehead. My heartbeat eased for half a second. Then she opened the next set. The breath left my lungs before I even understood what I was seeing. Owen, my son-in-law, in his tuxedo shirt, jacket off, tie draped loose around his neck, pinned willingly to the shadowed wall of a terrace behind the venue, and the woman pressed against him. She was no accident, no misunderstanding, no caught in a weird angle kind of situation. Her hands were in his hair. His arms were around her waist. Their mouths were locked like lovers who'd done this 1,000 times. Her hair was a deep brown, curled softly at the ends. And on her left hand, clearly visible reflected in the light, a wedding ring. I leaned closer, chest tightening with each breath. What? What time was this? Leah swallowed hard. Her cursor hovered over the metadata panel. 1 hour and 32 minutes before the ceremony. My body went cold. Not angry cold. Not shocked cold. Just empty. She clicked the info tab. Timestamp, GPS coordinates, camera signature. File integrity verified. Nothing doctored. Nothing manipulated. Everything real. He didn't even look nervous. Leah whispered, eyes fixed on the screen. That's what got me. He wasn't panicking. Wasn't conflicted. He looked like a man who was right where he wanted to be. I stared at Owen's face, smirking in one of the frames, thumb brushing the woman's cheek. That same thumb he placed on my daughter's face later that afternoon, before he kissed her and vowed to love her forever. My stomach churned. Then Leah clicked to another frame, and my heart twisted sharply. The brown-haired woman. I'd never seen her before. At least I thought I hadn't. But Leah's voice cut through, soft but trembling. I remember something else, Randy. Something I wasn't sure I should bring up. I turned toward her. That woman, she said, tapping the screen. She was at Alicia's dress fitting. My mind lurched. What? Yeah? Leah breathed. I was covering the fitting session for your daughter's wedding album. That woman showed up. Tried on a veil for fun. Alicia laughed with her like they were close. Closer than they should have been. I felt the air thicken around me. And that's not all, Leah added, standing slowly and walking to a drawer. She pulled out a small silver USB drive and placed it in my palm. These are all the originals, she said fondly. Photos, metadata, GPS logs. Everything. The drive felt heavier than metal. Heavier than anything I'd ever held. But before I could say anything, thank her, curse Owen, or just collapse, she stepped back, rubbing her hands together like she was warming them against some cold memory. There's one more thing you should know, Randy. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You weren't the first person I tried to warn. My pulse stopped. What do you mean? She exhaled shakily. I reached out to your daughter. Weeks before the wedding. I didn't have full proof then, just odd moments, red flags, interactions that didn't add up. And when I tried to tell her, she paused. Her eyes glistened. She slid an envelope across the table and told me word for word, we're not going to ruin this. And she said she'd pay extra if I didn't mention anything to you. My throat closed. Alicia, my eldest, my pridey, my beautiful girl in the white dress. She knew something was wrong. Maybe she knew everything. And she chose silence. Paid for silence. Paid to keep me blind. The USB sat in my fist like a loaded bullet. Leah stepped back, voice barely audible. I'm sorry, Randy, but your daughter didn't want you to know the truth. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was sinking behind the Rockies, turning the ski that deep Colorado orange that usually settles my nerves. Not that night. Not with that USB digging into my pocket like a shard of metal. I opened the front door, and the first thing I heard wasn't a greeting, but Dylan's voice, loud, entitled, planted right in my living room. Big guy, grab me a beer while you're up. He didn't even look away from the giant TV, my TV that he and Mara had taken over. Feet on my coffee table. Shoes on. Remote in hand like it was welded there. He pointed at the fridge with his chin. Top shelf, man. The cold ones. I stood there for a moment, watching a 41-year-old unemployed man bark orders at a 60-year-old homeowner. In my house. Under my roof. Eating my groceries. He didn't notice the look on my face. He never did. Mara was curled up on the sofa, scrolling on her phone, legs draped across Dylan, like they owned the place. Not paying rent, not paying bills, not paying respect. "Oh, Dad," she said without even lifting her eyes. "Good you're home. We need to talk." Those words again. Always the start of another extraction. I stepped into the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, not Dylan's beer, and leaned on the counter. "What's going on?" Mara finally sat up, brushing hair out of her face with a dramatic sigh. "So, Dylan and I have been thinking. And we found this amazing opportunity, like life-changing." My jaw clenched, but I kept quiet. She continued, fingers tapping excitedly on her phone screen. "A nail salon. But not just any salon, a family salon. Me, Dylan, maybe even you, if you want to help upgrade the place. We found a location we love. Perfect traffic. Great lighting. It just needs a little." Dylan chimed in, without looking away from the TV. 25 grand. Easy investment, big guy. You'd be in on the ground floor. Ground floor. Like I was some venture capitalist visiting their pitch deck. So Mara asked, smiling, like the question had already been answered. "Can you help us with the loan paperwork? Or do you just want to transfer the money directly so we don't miss the spot?" I stared at her, really stared. At the daughter I raised. The girl I taught to ride a bike on the street outside. The woman who'd been living under my roof rent-free for 4 years. 4 years. A detail that suddenly clicked into place like a puzzle piece I'd ignored too long. "Mara," I said slowly, "you've been living here without paying?" She cut me off, waving her hand. "Dad, stop. Family doesn't nickel and dime each other. Dylan and I are building our future. You should be happy for us." My throat tightened. Not because of anger, but because for the first time, I could feel the distance between what I thought my family was and what it had actually been. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Alicia, my eldest. I stepped into the laundry room for a shred of privacy and answered. "Hey, sweetheart." She didn't say hello. "Dad, great news, we found the condo we want. Owen and I are ready to put in the offer, but we need the down payment ASAP. 30,000. You can wire it to the title company directly. I already texted you the info." My pulse spiked. 30, Alicia, we haven't even talked about this." "Yes, we did, Dad." Her voice sharpened the way it used to when she wanted something specific. "You said you'd help us start our life the right way." "I never said, Dad." Softer now, sweeter, practiced. "This is important. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I closed my eyes. Images of her wedding flashed behind them. The flowers, the music, the $58,000 that evaporated into a day that apparently meant nothing at all. And the photos. God, the photos. "I'll think about it," I said quietly. Her voice cooled instantly. "Please don't take too long. We can't lose the place." Then she hung up. "No, I love you. No, how are you? Just expectation. Entitlement." Like I was nothing more than a walking ATM with a pulse. I stood there in the dim laundry room, hearing Dylan shout at the TV, Mara laugh at something on TikTok, and the faint hum of my old refrigerator, a sound I'd always found comforting, suddenly feeling like the house itself was groaning under the weight of everyone who took and took and took. By the time I walked into the kitchen again, the lights were low. Mara and Dylan were still sprawled on the couch, but the world felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the inside of my chest. I sat at the table alone in the half-dark, pulled the USB from my pocket, set it on the table. My fingers trembled as I reached for my laptop. I tried to plug it in, missed. Tried again, my hand jerked. The port slipped away from me like oil. I pressed my shaking hand flat on the table, breathing hard. A 60-year-old man trembling in his own kitchen, too shaken to even see the truth waiting on a tiny silver drive. I closed my eyes, but the shaking didn't stop. Hours passed before my hands stopped shaking enough to finally push the USB, into the laptop. The little drive clicked into place with a sound so soft, so harmless. Hard to believe it carried the weight of a truth that would gut me from the inside out. I opened the folder. There were more photos than Leah had shown. A lot more. At first they were harmless. Owen dining at a rooftop bar, the brown-haired woman across from him. Coffee shop meetings, a parking lot embrace near a yoga studio. All before the wedding. Then they got worse. Hotel hallway. Same woman. Different clothes. Different week. His hand at her lower back. Her leaning into him, like she'd known that body for years. The timestamps stabbed like needles. May 3rd. May 15th. May 29th. June 2nd. All during the peak of wedding planning, when Alicia used to call me every night, complaining she was too busy to stop by. My stomach twisted. It was no accident. No slip. No drunken moment. It was a schedule. Owen had been living a double life so cleanly, so confidently, you'd think he practiced it in the mirror. I dug deeper into the folders. Invoices from the wedding. Receipts. Payments. Transfers. Leah hadn't just saved the photos, she had archived patterns, financial patterns. And then I found something that made my vision blur. A joint account statement. Opened 2 months before the wedding. Owner Alicia Coleman. Co-owner Owen Hale. Not after they were married. Not during the honeymoon. Before. I scrolled. Deposits. Gifts from the engagement party. Early wedding gifts. Transfer from Alicia's personal savings. Another deposit labeled Hale Family Contribution. I zoomed in. It wasn't Owen's family's handwriting. It was his. They'd been pooling money before they even walked down the aisle. My pulse hammered as I grabbed my coat keys in hand. I needed answers. The bank was cold, the kind of cold that feels designed, structured, meant to keep people from lingering. Patricia, the branch manager who'd known me for 15 years, smiled the way people do when they see someone who's always been predictable. Randy, what can I help you with today? I handed her the joint account statement. Her smile dimmed. Ah, yes, I remember this. You do. She nodded. Your daughter and her husband were very proactive. Owen came in twice before the wedding to make sure everything was set up properly. Before the wedding, my skin prickled. And after the wedding, I asked. She hesitated. Quite a few deposits, she said finally. Your family was very generous. Family. That word felt like a bruise. Did they say anything else? I pressed. Patricia opened her mouth, then shut it quickly, the way someone does when they almost reveal something confidential. Finally, she said Owen's family. They seemed very eager to make sure funds were handled correctly. Very organized. Very involved. Organized. Eager. Those were not the words you wanted to hear about a man caught with another woman 90 minutes before his vows. I thanked her and left my jaw tight enough to gray teeth. Back home, I went straight to the office. Started digging through the files Alicia had given me months ago, wedding contracts, vendor lists, deposits. Then at the bottom of the folder, under a stack of caterer invoices, I found it. A prenup. Signed. Notarized. Dated 3 months before the wedding. The air left my lungs. If Alicia and Owen divorced, Alicia forfeited all access to Owen's premarital assets. She waived spousal support. She waived all rights to marital property, except for wedding gifts and monetary contributions from guests. My hands went cold. Who writes a prenup like that? Who agrees to that? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me shift, something slow and heavy, like the ground cracking beneath old foundations. Did Alicia know? Had she known about the other woman? Had she gone through with the wedding anyway, because the money made the humiliation worthwhile? No. I didn't want to believe that. But the math was there. Cold, simple, clean. Wedding gifts equals cash. Cash split equals profit. Profit gained, incentive. For the first time in my life, my eldest daughter's love felt like an equation. I walked out of the office to get some air. Stopped at the bottom of the staircase when I heard voices upstairs. Mara. Phone on speaker. Volume up. She always talked like the whole house needed to hear her business. Yeah, I think he's softening, she said, giggling. Give me a week, maybe 2. He'll crack and send the condo money. He hates confrontation. I froze. Alicia's voice came through crisp and confident. Good. Keep him comfortable. Just 2 more months and we're done. The divorce papers are already drafted. My legs turned to stone. Mara gasped. Already, of course, Alicia said, completely unbothered. Colorado law is straightforward. Wedding gifts count as marital associates. Split 60-40 just like we planned. Mara laughed. God, Ali, you're a genius. Alicia replied, we just need Dad steady until the dust settles. Don't say anything stupid. We're so close. My breath caught in my throat. 2 daughters, plotting, calculating, using me like a bridge they could walk over to get to the life they actually wanted. I stood there, one hand on the railing, the other pressed against the wall, because my knees weren't holding me anymore. They didn't see me, didn't hear me. And for the first time in 60 years, I felt something in myself go completely still. A kind of stillness that comes right before a storm. I barely slept that night. Not a minute of it felt like rest, just long stretches of staring at the ceiling, while every word I'd overheard played on loop in the back of my skull. Mara laughing. Alicia strategizing. The word 60-40, stabbing harder than any insult either of them had ever thrown my way. By sunrise, I knew I couldn't keep pretending nothing was happening. I'd spent 60 years avoiding conflict, smoothing over tension, trying to be the good father, the steady one, the peacekeeper. But peacekeepers die early. Warriors live long enough to see themselves stand for something. By 9 o'clock, I was pulling into a beige office plaza on the north end of town, a row of old law offices, CPA firms, and insurance brokers. The sign on the frosted glass door said, Harold Madsen, attorney at law. Family and property. Inside, the air smelled faintly of leather, old books, and coffee strong enough to clean engine parts. The receptionist, a woman in her 50s with silver hair, pulled into a tight knot, led me straight back. Harold Madsen stood when I walked in. 62 years old, gray hair, thick mustache, shoulders broad like a man who once played football and still remembered how to hold the line. His eyes were sharp, in a way mine hadn't been in years. Mr. Coleman, he said, extending his hand. Harold, good to meet you. Please sit. His office was cluttered, but intentionally. Books everywhere. Court binders. A framed photo of him shaking hands with a former Colorado governor. A wall of diplomas that told me the man didn't just know the law, he respected it like scripture. I sat. He opened a legal pad, clicked his pen once. So he said quietly, tell me everything. I did. All of it. The photos, the prenup, the joint account, the overheard phone call, the 4 years of Mara and Dylan living off me, the condo shakedown, the feeling of being replaced by my own wallet. Harold didn't interrupt. Not once. He just listened, nodding slowly, pen moving with deliberate strokes. When I finished, he set the pen down and leaned back. Randy, he said, folding his hands over his stomach, you're dealing with 3 separate problems, each ugly, each solvable. My heart thudded. Harold raised a finger. First, Mara and Dylan. In Colorado, if they never signed a lease, never paid rent, never entered into a rental agreement, they are not tenants. He leaned in. They are guests. And guests can be removed with a simple 30-day notice. legally airtight. A small breath left my lungs. Not relief. Not yet. But something close to air. Harold opened a statute book and spun it toward me. Colorado Revised Statutes. Property, occupancy. 30-day notice to quit for non-tenants. He tapped it twice. You have absolute authority over your home. He raised a second finger. Now Alicia and Owen. That prenup is legitimate, which means anything gained during the marriage can be contested, especially if fraudulent intent can be proven. Fraudulent, I repeated. Harold nodded. If Owen misled your daughter, if he hid assets, if there was a relationship ongoing before the marriage, if there was an intent to use the wedding as a financial gain, well, Colorado takes a strict stance on marital deception. He slid a sheet across the desk. And what you've told me, Randy, that smells like premeditated financial manipulation. I swallowed hard. And Alicia? I asked quietly. Could she have? He lifted a hand. Fraud doesn't require innocence from both parties. If Owen had a scheme, and Alicia went along because it benefited her, he sighed. She's still vulnerable to legal scrutiny. But only if you want to go that far. I didn't answer. The thought alone made something in my chest ache like an old scar. Then Harold raised a third finger. Now the big one, your assets. You've got a house, a business, retirement funds, and whatever you've saved over the years. You need to protect them. He pulled out a thick packet clipped together with a black binder clip. This is what I recommend, an irrevocable trust. The words felt heavy. It's a financial fortress, he continued. Once your assets go in, nobody, and I mean nobody, can manipulate you into giving them anything you don't want to give. I stared at the papers. A fortress. Not a wall. Not a door. A fortress. Your daughters will still receive whatever you choose after you pass, Harold added. But they won't be able to siphon from you while you're alive. Not a dollar. I nodded slowly. And if they get angry, I asked. Harold gave a dry, sympathetic half smile. Oh, they will. Trust me. I've been doing this 40 years. People who've been eating free don't like being told the kitchen is closed. He leaned forward. But Randy, you either take control now, or they'll drain you dry and still say you didn't give enough. My throat tightened. He slid a service contract across the desk. Professional. Binding. Clear. This will cover the trust, the notices, the advisement, and any filings. All in. I signed before my resolve could waver. Harold stood and walked to his file cabinet. When he returned, he placed a crisp sheet of paper in front of me. Notice to vacate 30 days issued pursuant to Colorado law, my name at the top. Mara's at the bottom. Dylan's beneath hers. The paper looked simple. Just a document, a statement. But it felt like the end of something that should never have reached this far. Give it to them tonight, Harold said softly. Tomorrow at the latest. The longer you wait, the more power they think they have. I lifted the page. But my hands, damn it, my hands trembled again. Harold saw. He didn't judge. Randy, he said quietly, I know this is hard. Harder than anything physical you've lifted in your life. But the only people who fear boundaries are the ones who benefit from you not having any. I looked down at the paper one more time. Mara's name. Dylan's name. 30 days. A line in the sand. And as I walked out of that office, the cold Colorado air hit me like a wake-up call, sharp, clean, and unforgiving. In the car, I stared at the notice again. Just stared. Because I knew the moment I handed it to them, I wouldn't just be evicting two people. I'd be losing my daughters forever. I handed them the notice right after dinner. Didn't wait. Didn't warm them up to it. Just set the envelope on the coffee table between an empty cereal bowl and one of Dylan's damn energy drink cans. Mara picked it up first. Her eyebrows lifted confused, then dropped sharply as she read. What? What is this? Her voice was small at first. Too small. Dylan grabbed the paper from her. His lips twisted the way a dog shows its teeth. 30 days, he barked. Are you out of your mind, big guy? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Dylan slammed the notice back onto the table so hard, the glass next to it tipped, rolled, and crashed onto the floor, shattering across the hardwood. Oh, real classy, he shouted. You think you can toss us out like trash? We've lived here for years, man. That's exactly the problem, I said quietly. Mara's face crumpled. Her voice cracked into a high, panicked sob. Dad, how could you do this? How could you do this to your own daughter? You're destroying this family. She used that word like it still meant what it used to. Dylan paced in circles, hands on his head. This is illegal. You can't just kick people out. I'll sue, I swear to God. I'll sue your ass and take you for everything you got. I almost laughed. They had no idea how thoroughly Harold had drilled the law into me. Mara was shaking now, but not from fear, from entitlement, running out of places to hide. You didn't even talk to us, she cried. We're supposed to be building something together. Me and Dylan had plans. We had a future here. No, I said softly. You had a free ride. There's a difference. A silence followed so sharp it felt like the air was holding its breath. Then Mara reached for her phone. I'm calling Alicia. She'll talk sense into you. Of course she would. Within minutes, the speakerphone lit up the room. Alicia's voice came out smooth and annoyed, like she'd been interrupted during something important. What is going on? Mara said, Dad's having a meltdown. I sat at the kitchen counter out of view listening. Dylan snatched the phone. He's throwing us out. Your daddy's losing it. 30 days. No warning. No nothing. Alicia sighed loudly. Dad, she said, you deuce to understand, Owen, and I can't deal with extra stress right now. His parents already think you're unpredictable. Unpredictable. That stung more than I expected. And Mara lives there, she continued sharply. You can't just evict your own daughter. Do you know what that looks like? To people. Not to me, to the crowd in her head. She lived her life trying to impress. Owen's voice chimed in faintly in the background. Confident, smooth, the same tone he used in his vows. Put pressure on him, he said. Make him understand what he's risking. Public image is everything for a guy his age. Mara nodded like the phone could see her. Dad's scared of being judged, she said. He'll fold. Trust me. Randy folds, Randy caves, Randy writes the checks. The roles they'd assigned me were suddenly loud enough to choke on. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and hit the record button. Harold was right. Document everything. I also grabbed a notebook and started writing time. Date, statements, threats, tone. I wasn't just a father anymore. I was a man preparing for war. Alicia's voice rose again. Dad needs to calm down. I'll call him later tonight. Don't worry. We'll get him to walk this back. Walk this back. Like I was a misbehaving child they needed to corral. Dylan puffed his chest. He's not scaring me. I'll get a lawyer. I know my rights. He didn't. But I didn't correct him. The call ended. The house went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, charged quiet. The kind of silence right before lightning hits. I slipped into my office and shut the door, gently locking it out of habit. Then I opened the laptop again. USB already plugged in. This time my hands didn't shake. I clicked through the photos until I found her, the brown-haired woman. Zoomed in closer. Her left hand. The ring. The curve of her cheek. The neckline of her dress. Then there on her wrist. A small ink mark. Faded. Delicate. Just a few curved lines. A tattoo. A tattoo I knew. My breath hitched. 12 years ago, a girl in my shop, barely 20, used to wear the same mark. A tiny crescent shape tucked under her wrist where she thought no one noticed. Quiet girl. Hard worker. Left suddenly, no explanation. Her name. God, what was it? Emily. Emily Carter. And there she was, in a wedding photo, with my son-in-law, holding him like she never stopped. My pulse went cold. Because this wasn't just an affair. This was history. Connections. Roots. A web I never saw forming. A world of betrayal I'd been living in without knowing. And as I stared at the image of that tattoo, the truth sank in like a stone dropped down a deep well. This war started long before I ever picked up that phone. They chose the time. They insisted on the place. They even told me what to cook. A family dinner, Alicia said on the phone. Like adults. We need to talk this through calmly. Calmly. Like the last week hadn't been a battlefield with me as the only target. By 6:30, all four of them were in my house. Alicia in her tailored blazer. Owen in a button-down that probably cost more than my mortgage payment back in '92. Mara in a dress she bought with my credit card. And Dylan in a hoodie that somehow managed to look both wrinkled and seesawy. My dining table felt smaller with them around it, like the room shrank to fit the size of their expectations. I set the last plate down. Roast chicken. Vegetables. Nothing fancy. Alicia gave a polite smile, the kind she used on clients. Dad, thank you for dinner. We're all here because we care about you. That was how it started. Then came the real reason. Owen cleared his throat, sliding a neat packet of papers across the table toward me. Randy, this is just a temporary authorization, he said, voice calm, confident. Purely procedural. It lets us start the evaluation process for selling the property. Given your age and responsibilities, a smaller place would be safer. Safer. The word tasted rotten. Mara leaned forward, voice syrupy sweet. We're not trying to push you, Dad. We're trying to help you. You don't need all this space. Dylan and I could handle the logistics. You wouldn't have to stress about anything. Dylan nodded aggressively like the world had been waiting for his opinion. It's a win-win. You downsize, and we all get to move forward. You'll feel good once it's done, big guy. There it was again. Big guy. The verbal pat on the head. I didn't touch the papers. Alicia took over next, crossing her arms lightly, her tone shifting into the cold professionalism she used when she wanted something badly. Dad, we know change is hard. But Owen and I talked about this for weeks. Selling this place is the right choice. It frees you. It supports us. It stabilizes everyone. Supports us. Us. Always them. I didn't interrupt. Not once. I let them perform their little choreography, empathy, logic, pressure, guilt. A rehearsed dance they must have practiced on the drive over. And when they finished, when the room fell into that expectant hush, I reached beneath my chair, pulled out the envelope, and slid it to the center of the table. Before I sign anything, I said quietly, you should take a look at this. Alicia frowned, confused. Owen's face twitched. Dylan leaned back like he expected a check. Mara reached for the envelope, opened it, and hell broke loose. The first photo slid out. Owen's hand tangled in the brown-haired woman's hair, her mouth against his. His eyes closed like a man enjoying every second. Alicia froze. Her fork slipped from her hand and clattered on the plate. Owen jolted upright. Where did you get that? I didn't answer. Mara pulled another photo out. And another. And another. Hands, bodies, lips, timestamps burned into the bottom. Oh, Owen, Alicia said, voice cracking. What is this? Owen swallowed hard. It's not what it looks like. It looks like you were making out with a married woman an hour and a half before the wedding, I said calmly. Alicia pressed her hand to her chest, breathing fast. But she didn't deny it. Not fully. Dad, there has to be an explanation, she stammered. This is old. It must be. The metadata is accurate, I said. The photographer verified it. Owen shot up, palms on the table. You had no right to dig into this. That's private. The irony almost made me laugh. Dylan stood suddenly, pointing a shaky finger at me. This is sick, man. Digging into people's past, dragging up old mistakes, just to make yourself look righteous. That's not healthy, big shut up. Alicia snapped at him. For a second, the mask cracked. I let them scramble. Let them grasp for excuses. Let them blame me, each other, the universe. Then I spoke quiet, slow, steady. The house, I said, is no longer mine. They all fell silent. What? Alicia breathed. It belongs to an irrevocable trust now. So does my business. So does my savings. And none of you, I looked at each of them, have any control over it. Ever. The room dropped into a cold metallic quiet. Mara blinked fast, her voice suddenly small. Dad, why would you do that? Because you weren't trying to help me, I said softly. You were trying to strip me clean. Alicia slammed her palm on the table. You betrayed this family. No, I said, standing slowly. I stopped letting this family betray me. Owen opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He had nothing left to say. Dylan muttered something under his breath. Anger, confusion, maybe fear. Didn't matter. I pushed my chair in neatly, walked to the doorway, and for the first time in years I felt taller than every one of them. I didn't look back when I said dinner's over. I left them sitting there, 4 people with my blood in their veins, 4 strangers I no longer recognized, staring at the truth laid out between the plates. The days after that dinner felt like living inside a house that had turned feral, my home, my walls, my air, but everything had teeth. The storm didn't come all at once. It came in waves, calculated, desperate, ally. Mara went first. She collapsed in the hallway the next morning, clutching her stomach, gasping like she'd been stabbed. Dad, I can't breathe. My heart hurts. Her voice trembled, but her eyes kept flicking toward me, checking if I was watching. I didn't rush, didn't kneel beside her like she expected. I simply said, there's a clinic 3 blocks away. Dylan can drive you. She froze mid-gasp, like she forgot her lines. The miracle recovery came fast. Within 10 minutes, she was eating cereal on the couch, scrolling TikTok, telling Dylan to shut up, because her show was on. Dylan escalated next. Passive-aggressive at first. Oops, didn't mean to drop your toolbox. Oh damn, your coffee maker just slipped. What? The thermostat broke again. Must be the old wiring. Then active-aggressive. One afternoon I walked in to find the living room camera twisted toward the ceiling wires, dangling like snapped veins. He smirked from the recliner, my recliner. House is old, big guy. Stuff breaks. I just wrote it down. Time, date, damage, took photos. Sent them to Harold. Dylan didn't know he was building my case with every tantrum. Alicia tried the professional route. She showed up unannounced with a woman in a stiff blazer and flat shoes, the kind of shoes people wear when they are paid to judge others. Dad, Alicia said too sweetly, this is Dr. Felton. I think you need a mental wellness screening. You've been making impulsive decisions. The psychologist smiled like she already had a diagnosis ready. Randy, your daughters are worried about sudden behavioral changes. Would you mind answering a few questions? No, I said. She blinked. Alicia blinked harder. Dad, don't be ridiculous. This is for your own good. No, I repeated. Both of you out. Alicia's face twisted. Not hurt, not sad. Offended. Like I'd violated some unspoken rule of her universe. As they left, I caught Alicia whispering to the psychologist, "He's deteriorating. We might need to document this." I noted that down too. Owen made his move in the shadows. I came home early one day and heard papers whistling behind my office door. The lock clicked just as I reached for it. He stepped out, looking startled, but tried to cover it with a smile. "Oh, Randy, didn't expect you home yet. Alicia needed a document from the wedding stuff. Thought it might be in here." He said wedding stuff like the word evidence might slip out by mistake. I didn't argue. I just stared at him until his smile twitched, then vanished. He left quietly. When I checked my desk, my trust documents had been moved. Not taken, not copied, but touched. That's the thing about people who grow up manipulating. They never stop underestimating the man who stopped believing their lies. I recorded everything. Every word. Every threat. Every guilt trip. Every pity performance. Every night, I emailed Harold a detailed log. "They think I'm panicking," I wrote. "But I'm preparing." Then came the twist, the one that told me this wasn't a family conflict anymore. It was war. My phone rang. At 9:47 p.m. Leah. Her voice was trembling, same way it had the day she first called me. "Randy, are you safe?" No greeting, just fear. I swallowed. "What happened? She hesitated. "I don't know who they were, but 2 people came to my studio. They banged on the door. They said the wedding photos needed to disappear. All of them. They threatened me." My pulse went ice cold. "You're sure they didn't say their names?" "No. But one of them, he was tall. Broad shoulders, dark hoodie. The other one sounded like a woman. She said," Leah's breath shook. "She said if I didn't delete the files, I'd regret ever picking up a camera." A tall man. A woman with rage in her throat. I could name 2 candidates without thinking. "They're not just scared," Leah whispered. "They're trying to erase the truth." I closed my eyes. Let her words settle. Let the picture form. My own children. Their partners. Coming after evidence. Coming after me. Not family. Not anymore. Enemies. Leah sniffed, voice tight. "Randy, should I keep the files somewhere safer?" "No," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'll handle it." Because I finally understood something I should have realized weeks before. They didn't see me as their father. They saw me as the last obstacle. A defense they had to break through. A man they needed to crush before their scheme collapsed. And God help me, that realization didn't scare me. It woke me up. The war they wanted, they were finally going to see the man they thought they were fighting. And he wasn't afraid of any of them. Eviction day wasn't loud at first. It wasn't chaos or screaming or shattered glass. It was quiet, dead quiet, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see who it belonged to. Deputy Carlson arrived right on time. Square shoulders, calm voice, mirrored sunglasses that reflected back a version of me I barely recognized, older, exhausted, but standing my ground. Harold showed up a minute later, briefcase in hand, the way a surgeon carries his tools before opening someone up. "You ready, Randy?" Harold asked. I nodded, didn't trust myself to speak. We walked up the path together. I could hear Dylan pacing inside, even before we knocked, heavy footsteps, angry breaths. Carlson rapped on the door. "Sheriff's Department." "Open up." Silence. Then Dylan's voice through the wood, "Get lost." "We're not opening." "Shit." Carlson didn't flinch. He knocked again, firmer. "Sir, you open the door, or we'll open it for you. You are now trespassing on private property." I heard Mara gasp from inside, followed by frantic whispering. Finally, the lock clicked, and the door cracked open just enough for Dylan to glare at us. "You got no right. This is illegal. You can't just—" Carlson stepped forward. hand on his belt voice, calm but carved from steel. "Sir, the 30-day notice was legally served. Today is enforcement. You are out of time." Dylan's jaw flexed, and for a moment I thought he might do something stupid swing-shove-grab. Then he muttered, "This is bullshit," and backed away. The door opened fully, and the smell hit me. First weeks of takeout containers, spilled beer, damp towels, and a lingering sourness of people who knew they weren't staying long and didn't bother pretending. Mara was on the couch, mascara-smeared hair a mess, wrapped in a blanket, like she was auditioning for the role of tragic daughter betrayed by life. "Daddy, how could you do this?" she whispered. Her voice trembled. "Broken. Practiced. You're choosing to make us homeless." I swallowed hard. There was no pleasure in this. No victory. Just necessity. "You have 2 hours," Carlson announced. "Clothes, personal items only. Furniture stays." Mara shot to her feet. 2 hours, 2 hours. She pointed at me with shaking hands. "Are you happy, Daddy? You're finally getting rid of us." "God, you're a monster. Monster." That one landed deeper than I expected. Dylan kicked a trash bag across the floor. "Just remember this. When you're old and alone," he spat. "Hope the trust keeps you warm at night." Harold leaned toward me. "Don't respond," he murmured. "Let the law talk for you today." So I did. I stood by the doorway silent as they rushed around the house, stuffing clothes into garbage bags, yanking chargers out of walls, dropping half their crap down the stairs. Every few minutes, Mara burst into tears again. Every few minutes, Dylan cursed the universe or me. At one point, Mara stopped halfway up the stairs and stared at me. "I loved you," she said. "But you never loved me back." Not really. I felt that. Right in the chest. But I held firm. This wasn't punishment. This was the consequence of 4 years of choices, none of them mine. Carlson checked his watch. 30 minutes left. Dylan loaded the trunk of their beat-up sedan, slamming it so hard the whole car shook. Mara dragged one last bag to the porch, turned to me with eyes that used to be bright, soft, full of childhood. Now they looked hollow. "You will die alone," she whispered. "And I hope you think of this moment when it happens." She meant it. That was the part that stunned me. Dylan wrapped an arm around her shoulder and ushered her to the car. The engine sputtered, backfired, shuddered down the road. And then, silence. Real silence. The kind I hadn't heard in years. Carlson handed me a copy of the enforcement form. "They're officially out. If they return without permission, call us. Don't open the door. Don't negotiate." He offered a small nod, not sympathy, but respect. Harold squeezed my arm. "You did the right thing. I know it hurts, but it was necessary." When they drove away, I didn't follow them with my eyes. I stepped inside, closed the door, turned the lock slowly like sealing off an infected wound. The house felt bigger, still, empty in a way that wasn't sad, just honest. I walked into the living room, my living room, picked up the old leather recliner remote, sat down in the chair that Dylan had claimed every night, like it was his birthright. The cushion sighed beneath me. A familiar sound. My fingers slid over the worn armrest, a groove where my hand used to rest back when this place was still a home, not a battlefield. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel stolen, didn't feel occupied. It felt mine. And as the late afternoon light spilled across the floorboards, warm and golden, something inside me loosened a knot I didn't know I'd been carrying for decades. I exhaled. Long, slow, real. For the first time in forever, I was truly, completely, unmistakably home. Freedom didn't rush in like a parade. It came quietly, like a shy guest at the door showing up in the corners of my mornings. Some days it looked like a clean kitchen counter. Other days, it was the simple luxury of hearing my own footsteps echo in a house that finally belonged to me again. I filled the silence with things I'd forgotten I loved. I started guitar lessons every Wednesday at a tiny studio off Nevada Avenue. Smelled of wood polish and old amplifiers. My fingers fumbled the chords stiff, clumsy, but I hadn't felt that kind of joy in a long time. Friday afternoons I fixed things at the senior center. Loose table legs, broken lamps, a screen door that wouldn't close right. Nobody demanded. Nobody expected. People were grateful, genuinely grateful, and I'd forgotten what that felt like. And every other Tuesday, Leah and I met for coffee. A quiet diner on Tijon Street. Simple. Nothing dramatic. She told me about her photography projects. I told her about guitar struggles and the trust documents and the odd comfort of rebuilding your life after everyone tries to take it from you. She listened. Really listened. One afternoon as we walked out to the parking lot, she touched my arm lightly. "You look lighter," she said. I didn't know how to reply. But the truth was, it felt good to be seen in a version of myself that wasn't exhausted. Harold sent the final envelope 2 weeks after the eviction. Heavy paper. Thick seal. I read every page at my kitchen table under the glow of a lamp my wife and I bought 27 years ago. Trust finalized. Assets secured. Untouchable. Irreversible. Harold wrote in a small note, "You built a fortress, Randy. No one can take from you again." I folded the letter with steady hands. For the first time since the photographer's phone call, I felt unbreakable. News trickled in through the grapevine, as news always does in a town like this. Alicia and Owen were divorced quick, messy, spiteful. Whatever money they'd tried to collect during that wedding, most of it vanished into legal fees, accountants' depositions. A scam that devoured itself. They tried to outplay each other, and they both lost. Mara and Dylan bounced between cheap rentals around Colorado Springs. Dylan picked up a job at a tire shop. Mara waitressed at a bar off Academy. Their relationship was already splintering under the weight of real responsibilities. Turns out, life gets heavier when nobody else is carrying it for you. Sometimes I wondered if they blamed me, but wondering wasn't the same as worrying. I'd done my part. The rest was theirs. One evening, just as the sun was turning the Rocky Mountains a shade of copper, you only see for 10 minutes a day, my phone rang. Alicia. I almost didn't answer. But old habits die slow. "Dad," she breathed, voice flat and tired. "I just want you to know. You chose this. You chose being alone. You pushed us away." Her words weren't sharp this time, just hollow. I let the silence settle between us. Then I said softly but clearly, "No, Alicia. I didn't choose loneliness. I chose respect. And you chose not to be part of that." She didn't reply. Maybe she couldn't. The line went dead. I set the phone on the counter and stepped out onto the back deck, letting the last light of the day wash over me. The Rockies stood tall and unmoved, glowing under the sunset, solid, unshakable, ancient. A reminder that some things survive storms simply because they refuse to bend. For the first time in years, I felt like one of them. Not running, not defending, just standing. Whole. Peace isn't free. It costs pieces of you, the people you lose, the illusions you bury, the boundaries you finally enforce. But God, it's worth every damn penny. I leaned on the railing, breathing in cold mountain air, watching the world go quiet around me. A life rebuilt. A man reclaimed. I thought that was the end of the story. It was not. Because on a quiet winter morning, with frost hugging the windows and the world still half asleep, I opened my front door and found an envelope on the welcome mat. No name, No return address. Just my name handwritten in ink I didn't recognize. And inside that envelope was the beginning of a whole new story.